I was faced with a couple of realities that I was I kind of had a culture shock, because I had a culture shock how much we had racism and sexism in the workplace here in Finland. And it definitely affected if we are trying to, for example, grow in other markets, if we can't even hire, for example, international people in our companies here. So I think that was one of my first ones that I was like, okay, just better marketing is not going to be enough.
Welcome to WITT. Hi, I'm Megan. I talk with founders, investors, and operators working in tech. My aim is to inspire you with their stories and perspectives. Through this podcast, I want to amplify the voice of women working in tech. If you want to support WITT, then make sure you follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Then you won't miss any future episodes. Today's guest is Katja, a digital marketing pioneer and co-founder of Crush Movement, dedicated to elevating women in business. Let's get into it. Hi Katja, welcome to WITT. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I would love to kick off our conversation with a lightning round. Is that okay?
Yes, let's go.
Awesome. First question. What is the best event that you've ever attended, apart from your own, of course?
Okay, I'm going to say the very first marketing event I ever attended in US. It was called Blog World Expo, I think, or New Media Expo. They joined, and I got my first Fortune 1 company as a client. So it was a huge success.
Wow.
But I think more importantly, what I learned, that I already knew a lot. I thought I'm going to go and learn, but I think for me, one of the most important lessons was that, like, wow, I knew more than I thought I did.
Awesome. That's really great. Second question. What is a book that every entrepreneur should read?
Big Rich Money.
Okay. And who's that by?
By me.
By you, of course. I mean, that makes sense. Third question, a very important question. Are you a pineapple on pizza person?
Oh, not? Absolutely. I try everything and I do everything weirdly. So absolutely I am.
Love it. Question number 4. What's your superpower in business?
Probably just genuinely wanting to help people, genuinely enjoying seeing other people being successful.
That's lovely. Question number 5. If you had an extra hour in your day, every day, how would you use it?
To sleep.
I think that's very simple, but honestly understandable. Question number 6. Who is your dream keynote speaker to have at one of your events?
Absolutely. Reese Witherspoon, no doubt.
Love it. Question number 7. What's one Finnish habit that you think the world should adopt?
Okay, this is actually a hard one. I'm trying to think, because our family has 2 cultures, that what is something that we swear by, but I would say sauna. I mean, everybody should have a sauna, right? To relax.
Everyone should have a sauna. Exactly. Every house in the whole world.
Yes.
Question number 8. What's one value you refuse to compromise on in your work?
Treating people right.
Love it. Question number 9. What is your favorite country to visit?
Oh, okay. This is way too difficult. There's just so many, but I probably have to say Italy, just for the sheer amount of times that I have visited Italy. I probably spent over probably a year and a half of my life in Italy. That's how often I have visited there. So that's probably it.
Okay, so definitely favorite country then. Lovely. And then the last question for the lightning round is, if you had to kind of describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 emojis, what would they be and why?
Probably star, for because they say reach for the moon, so I guess reach for the moon, you'll land on stars, right? And
makes sense.
And then probably some color of a heart, probably pink heart, says for putting people first. So
moon, star, and heart. Okay, lovely. Well, that was really awesome. Thank you for answering my lightning round questions. And let's now move on to your journey, right? So you, I would say, have a very impressive track record of helping people succeed and create impact. What made you kind of pursue this path of helping others?
Well, I don't want to go like, I'm old, so I don't want to go like way, way back. But I think for me, it probably started in 2004. I was a mom of three kids under four. And by that time, we had already lived in multiple countries. We have moved often. And it was challenging for me to find a job, get a childcare, for all three kids. So I started working. I was like, what can I do online? So that was kind of like my start of being an entrepreneur. And through that journey, and then getting into social media, then building my first online store and all of that, I think it really was just seeing other people in the similar situations. And I think the kind of wish to help others was seeing how difficult it was, especially for moms, to go back to work or have their career path. So for me, it really definitely was seeing others in the same situation and utilizing the tools of technology or social media to improve your career or even starting your own business. I think just being in that situation myself and having empathy for other people. I think if you haven't walked in other people's shoes or you don't have that empathy to look, you think that certain things are, oh, that's so easy. Here is like this formula or path, like, okay, you just follow along and you do all of this and then it's so easy. But once, especially as an immigrant or somebody, living in different countries, not maybe knowing the language or knowing the culture, not having the networks, it definitely gave me more empathy in that and trying to find solutions and networks, how we can all help each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like this definitely brings me into my next question, which is kind of a movement that you started, right? And I had a lovely time at Crush Movement, which is an event to celebrate people who are passionate about what they do. I think that's correct. What inspired this idea? We heard a little bit about kind of your path on helping people, but how do you see it helping to shift how we value passion, creativity, kind of intelligence in, let's say, the business world of today?
I wanted to start Crush because, like I said, when I was starting in 2008, I had my online store in US. That was kind of like the beginning of the influencer marketing, the social media marketing, and seeing the impact, that women had. I remember being laughed at conferences when I said that social media marketing is going to change the world. And people were laughing at me and saying like, it's just moms who are on Twitter and Facebook because they don't have anything better to do. And I just had kind of that in my pocket, seeing how social media marketing and all of that had changed the world and it had become an entire new industry. Going a couple of years forward and moving back to Finland 8 years ago, I saw an opportunity here in Finland that we should do better marketing. Like I definitely marketing is all about people and caring about people. So that's kind of, where it maybe aligns with Crush in that as well. But I really saw that we have to do better marketing. We have to be able to communicate better with people from different cultures in order to increase revenue in our businesses. And I think that was a little bit even naive to think that just better marketing would help us. And I was faced with a couple of realities that I kind of had a culture shock, because I had a culture shock how much we had racism and sexism in the workplace here in Finland. And it definitely affected if we are trying to, for example, grow in other markets, if we can't even hire, for example, international people in our companies here. So I think that was one of my first ones that I was like, okay, just better marketing is not going to be enough. We need to do some type of a cultural change. And then in 2020, when we had the global pandemic, did you know that it was actually the first women's global recession? So it affected financially worse women than men globally.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yes, it was women who stayed home to take care of the kids when they were doing
Mm,
distant learning, often quitting their high paying good jobs because somebody had to take care of the family. There were also more
mm,
women who had service jobs, whether it's, restaurants, hairdressers, any type of a service job that was more women powered. So that to me was also a wake up call, like, okay, we actually need to support women more. And that's when I
definitely.
ended up writing the Big Rich Money: How to Turn Your Business Intentions into a Profitable Company. It was kind of like a
Mm,
girlfriend's guide to business strategy. Strategy is not really something that people are like, ooh, let's talk about our, business strategy. So that
yeah.
was kind of like written in a really fun way, just for like how you would talk about business to your friends, together with Candice Brathwaite from New York. And I translated to book in Finnish, and well, it wasn't just like literal word translation. It was more like a cultural translation. So I also interviewed
Hmm.
local entrepreneurs for it. And one of the chapters is talking about building a community and building networks. And that's when I met Anna, whom I then ended up founding Crush. We were doing very similar things, bringing people, especially women entrepreneurs and founders, together. So that's
Yeah.
how we ended up building Crush together. Now I
Oh,
run
nice.
Crush with my daughter Isabella and with our volunteer and our member team. But that's
Mm,
how Crush was.
yeah. Such a crazy story. Kind of like so inspiring at the same time because it's going from something so kind of like the book. You talked about the book, right? And it goes from that kind of idea and then just implementing that idea in a real world basis, which is
I
just
love
so
that you
cool.
actually took the word implementing. So,
Hmm.
actually, in the cover of a book, I'll tell you a story. We have a picture of like a golden balloon dog. In the book, we are talking about like our first entrepreneurial ideas.
Hmm.
Usually you have an idea and then you want to make that idea
Yep.
into a business. So, we talked how we were kids and we had all of these ideas. And Candice had an idea to do balloon animals, and she put them in a little radio flyer cart, and she was pulling it
Hmm.
around the neighborhood and trying to sell these dog balloons, and nobody bought them. So you would think
Oh.
that selling balloon animals, that's a really shitty business, right? Stupid idea, right? So actually most business ideas don't necessarily even have to be great ideas. They just have to be implemented well. You have to take
Mm.
action and you have to just do it. So that's actually one of the biggest messages, is the implementation and just taking action in the whole book. And I think that's the
Oh,
message, that especially here in Finland, we just need to be bolder and try things,
yeah.
even if we don't have a foolproof formula for that to work. An example where, do you know an example where selling balloon dogs and balloon animals have actually worked pretty good? There is an artist called Jeff Koons that makes these gigantic sculptures of balloon
Mm.
animals and even a balloon dog. And those have sold for like $50 million.
Wow.
So he is
Crazy.
actually the best earning living artist in the world. And he also started selling
Wow.
balloon animals, putting them in the window of his dad's store when he was a little
Mm.
kid. So Candice's idea of selling balloon animals wasn't really that bad. She just tried it on her little street in her neighborhood a couple of times. She was just selling it for wrong people, right people,
Hmm.
they were not,
Clearly.
she didn't know how to market them. She didn't know, she didn't have the connections. She was in the wrong neighborhood. Maybe, creating a picture or a sculpture would have been better than just a balloon. So that's just kind of like one of my favorite little stories, to say that it really isn't
Yeah.
always about having the perfect idea. It really is the
Mhm.
execution and implementation, how you go about it.
Definitely. I love that little story. That is so fun. And as you said, with Finland as a whole and kind of needing to just have that initiative to implement. It's just so important. It's such a cool concept. I'm so glad that you shared that with me. It's so interesting. I really would love to talk a little bit more about kind of stream conversation. So I want to talk about gender gap pay in kind of businesses and in kind of startup and the tech ecosystem as a whole. What are your kind of views on this? You talked a little bit about it.
Well, obviously, I am not a pay gap expert. I can't really, I can't really say that I'm an expert. It's just something that through Crush that we want to raise awareness per se,
Exactly.
and maybe create tools for women, and how they can maybe go about fighting the gap, or maybe
Yep.
how we can dismantle some of the systems that result in the gap.
Mm.
I would say that maybe the biggest really is that we have to acknowledge that it is systematic. I think so often we are just taking things that, oh, maybe it's just difficult for you, that but only if you would do this and this and this.
Yeah.
And so I just think that we need to acknowledge first that there is a systematic pay gap. We have to acknowledge that we have biases, and we have to acknowledge that we are taking almost daily, or kind of micro aggressions and micro activities that allow these pay gaps or discrimination in any level to happen.
Yeah, and definitely have that kind of awareness of the fact that this is a real problem and we need to kind of take steps to solve it. As with any problem, you need to take kind of steps to bring it out into the open and kind of showcase it a little bit. What would you say to someone who maybe is really struggling with this? What would you say to them to kind of try and bring it to someone's attention so they can get some help with it?
Well, a couple of things what I have noticed when recruiting, not that I have recruited that much, but in US I did lead a team of 900 people. But what I have noticed in recruiting is that when you have an open job, well, first of all, I do like that we are getting into that we have pay visibility already and transparency already in the applications. I think that's already good. But I have noticed as a person who has recruited people that men tend to look at the requirements, and if there are 10 requirements and they check 5 boxes, they will apply. Women tend to look at the, and obviously this is kind of sexist itself to even say these observations, and I acknowledge that. But women tend to think, they tend to look, oh, there are these 10 different requirements. Ooh, I only have 9 and I know a little bit of the 10th. Maybe I can't apply. So it's also that whether it's going for jobs or going for funding, we also, women, we as ourselves, but also the society is holding us to a much higher standard. So we kind of have to start thinking maybe like a mediocre man, that don't think like a woman when you're applying a job, but think of it that, okay, I don't have to have all of my shit together.
Right.
I don't have to have all of my qualifications. I don't have to be the best in my class, or, to even apply jobs. And then the second is what I have noticed when I have had both, all genders working under me, that typically women are given more responsibility, but it's a lot of these like empty jobs. You should really have an office manager who is organizing parties, who is, watering, plants, or who is taking care of the office or make sure that there is coffee or something. But often a lot of these jobs are added on for women. So there are a lot of added responsibilities and things that are put on women just because we think that they are women's jobs. So one is to start saying no to a lot of these extra work. And that actually tends that then when people are looked for promotions, they are looking at women's results. And because we have been carrying so many other things, maybe the actual tasks, what that we were hired for, maybe we are not performing on the same level, even though we are in a way working even more. So I also noticed something when and this is really funny. I didn't even notice this until I had people working under me, because I was so used to, as a woman, that you can go and say like, hey, for now on, could you also do this and this? Could you be a project manager for this particular project that is under your department or whatnot? And women, including me, really easily say like, oh, sure, let's go and let's do it. But men, I noticed that they treat a lot of these extra tasks and extra projects differently. They are immediately saying that, hey, now when you are adding responsibilities for me, I would like to have a raise, or I would like to have another title. So I did notice that men are much easier asking for raise or asking for promotion and being more proactive about it. And I know that I am also sometimes just hoping that people see, but the hope necessarily doesn't really get you to the next level or to the next pay gap.
Into that whole thing that we were talking about before about initiative. So really taking that kind of
Yes,
steps forward to say, yes, I deserve this,
yes,
and I
yes.
deserve this for doing the extra kind of work or whatever it is, or the little tasks.
Yes,
I'm really kind of
absolutely.
asking
I
for that.
think that women have to take more initiative, but it doesn't take away the fact that it's still very systematic how women are
Hmm.
treated in business. And it still doesn't take away the fact that the systematic change is needed. It's the responsibility should
Definitely.
be everyone's, not just the individuals.
Of course. Yeah, it's very important to have that as a kind of societal shift. Instead,
Yes,
obviously you can start with one person, but it has to kind of amount to more people kind of making that change, which is super important. An awesome conversation so far. I want to move into a totally different space and I want to talk about AI. Because obviously, as we know, it's a very evolving, fast kind of thing that's happening in our daily lives, but it does struggle with some things, as most things do. It does struggle with kind of emotional depth and human connection, obviously. How can we make sure roles rooted in empathy and creativity still remain valued in the tech driven world that we live in today?
well, I think this is a little bit the same way when TV came, people are like, radio is dead. But now, what do you know? I am here in a podcast interview, meaning that
Yeah.
audio content, for example, is not dead and it will evolve.
Mm-hmm.
People do business with people. We don't tend to, robot is not gonna, or AI is not gonna give you money. There is a person behind the company purchasing your product, and there is, it's not going to be, AI companies doing business with AI. It's always going to be people behind them and improving human lives, or improving our businesses, or improving
Mm-hmm.
something that is geared for people.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it does make sense that humanity and focusing on people is never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my prediction is that because we are moving maybe even too fast, or maybe because there are no rules really set, or a law, for example, is really
Mm-hmm.
behind on AI, we will go into a society where you have to prove that you're human. You have to
Mm-hmm.
We will have different layers of proving our humanity. And then on top of that, humanity is going to be valued so much more, and human creativity is going to be valued so much more, because we will, as humans, we will
Definitely.
crave that empathy, we will crave that human connection. AI is not able to replace a lot of things when it comes to humanity and empathy and
Mm-hmm.
our well-being.
Yeah, definitely. It is such an interesting topic to talk about. And I love your kind of perspective on it, that it's a human behind the kind of the artificial intelligence. I love that kind concept. I think that's really insightful and interesting.
I just
That's
think
good.
that
Continue.
in the future we will literally like pay people to go for a walk, or we will pay people to do really human, normal things what we are used to having in our days. It will be when we are actually connecting with people. That is going to be something that people will have to pay, because we don't necessarily even have the social skills to even interact with people the same way. And we already see the results. For example, let's say young people or Gen Z, Alpha, who are on phones much more than, maybe other generations. And especially, well, we didn't have it when we were young. We already see what kind of harm it does for development, or how much more difficult it might be to get to your first job. And, well, for example, to have guts to call your boss on the phone and ask for the raise. So a lot of these social skills that everybody, needs in a way or another when we work with other humans, if we are not focusing on also developing these, we will have, mental problems, or you will have career problems, or you can't live in your little silo or bunker without ever talking to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is interesting because always, as a kind of species, we've always strived for human connection, and it's interesting to see like what that technology will do. But that's again, like that's the way that history works. We've had this happen countless times. This is not a new thing. This is just
No,
a
no, no, no.
method
It's just a new
of life.
tool.
So it's basically the same process, and it's interesting to see how it will play out. But then if you look back at the past, you kind of already know how it's going to play out. So it's kind of one of those kind of things that is interesting to think about, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
it's funny to see, like, if we think of some science fiction movies, and not really even that far, like maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and you would have this in a science fiction, or not even like to the far future, but we would have these like that people are walking in a park, and then they are talking while they are walking. And people my generation, we used to laugh at movies like, oh my god, what a stupid person walking in a park and talking alone, ha ha ha, that's so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not even laughing because you don't even think that it's funny. But it used to be that the whole idea that you would have, a phone, and you would be talking, and you would not be interacting with people in the same space. You would be
Mm-hmm.
interacting with people, somewhere else, and not in the same space. That
Yeah.
the thought that people would be so antisocial,
Mm-hmm.
the thought that we would be on the same room, and we are all in our screens to looking at content, or talking video calls, or in our earbuds, talking with somebody else. And then everybody in that room, in a way or another, also sort of felt a little bit lonely. And we
Yeah.
laughed at that when we saw that in the movies, that, oh my God, we're never going to be that dumb. Of course, don't they
It is
see that,
funny.
they should
It
be
is
talking to
funny.
each others, so it's kind of like that. That
Yeah.
we've already, in a really short time, in my lifetime, we have become people that we didn't even have cell phones, and that's our livelihood. Like, that's our livelihood. We can't even live without it, and that is our extension to the world. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know all of my neighbors' names, but I have 100,000 followers on social media, and that somehow is like, oh, I have community. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of messed up on
Yeah.
microscopic level.
Yeah, it is a very interesting conversation, but I feel like we could talk about this for an entire podcast. And I would really love to move on into frameworks, right? So you said you don't really do frameworks, but let's talk about building your own frameworks and kind of processes?
So I'm by profession, I'm a strategist. So I do love building really big plans and I guess projects and ecosystems and seeing all of the pieces how they fit together. And obviously there are a lot of different tools and frameworks that I use, but instead of totally ignoring your question, because I instead of going to those specific frameworks and tools which
Okay.
anybody can will get on AI in 5 seconds. I want to talk that you cannot go and copy paste somebody else's framework or strategy. Like it's
Mm,
so
okay.
important to find these tools, find different frameworks. But I also want to warn people that it's not about finding the best framework or best formula. Let's say formula for success, and we often try to emulate or copy or like, okay, I was able to make this happen once, let's do it again. Or we have coaches or consultants trying to copy paste certain things.
Right.
So I think the type of frameworks and tools work the best when they really dig into your authenticity, how you are different
Hmm.
from anybody else, and how you are really able to hone down to that unique positioning that you and your company have. So everything that is trying to put
Mm.
you into a box and trying to create a copy paste type of a path to a success, I want to warn people that always keep the door open for unexpected. Always think that whatever you have unique is more important than something that, oh, how can we be more similar than somebody else?
Hmm. Yeah, and kind of finding your own, not necessarily voice, but your own kind of perspective on what works for you as an individual and as a kind of making your own learnings. Kind of like you could phrase it as like you're making your own to-do list or your own kind of book, which is how do I do things for me or something like that. I feel like
Yeah, yeah,
that's a good
yeah.
way of explaining it.
Absolutely. And I think it's more about having the guts to try different things. That's
Yeah.
definitely in my playbook, that how you are able to try different things and be open for different opportunities and different possibilities. Often when I speak or in consulting, I love using metaphors, and I say this, that let's say that your goal is an island. So let's say your goal
Hmm.
is an island and you have to get to the island, right? So a lot of us start
Right.
thinking like, okay, oh my god, can I swim? Is it too far? Maybe I can have money for a little rowboat, well, maybe a little pump up, raft or something. But
Hmm.
we immediately say like, oh, we obviously building a bridge is going to take too long. We don't have a submarine or we don't have a helicopter. You automatically start putting a lot of things off from the potential list of ways to get somewhere because you think that you don't have resources like money or time or even skills. So I kind of want to inspire people not to put any of those crazy vehicles or crazy ways to get to your goals off just because you think you can't, but finding really unique opportunities. How you could is can you get a partner who's already doing it? Is it somebody in a different industry that could, you could hop on their helicopter on the way there, so how are you able to look at these, challenges or look at your goals in a way that you are not immediately saying, well, at least we can't do this and this and this and this. That kind of having the guts to keep even the craziest opportunities
Hmm.
open.
Yeah, definitely having all options open is always a good idea, I think. Definitely to just make it easier for yourself and to explore all of the other options as well. It's always good to have that.
I don't think it's necessarily easier.
Well, if you have more options, it can't make it harder.
Yeah, well, it can, because then you might waste so much time on just looking at different options, and then you will
Mm.
never get there because you're like, oh, next. next, oh next. So obviously there is also such a thing as too many options, but I just want to tell people to keep their eyes open for unexpected and untested ways of doing things, and thinking of collaboration and partnerships and reuniting your resources maybe with somebody else. That don't let like lack of skills or lack of resources to stop you. There are always different ways that you can accomplish them. And like, you asked on lightning round, for example, my favorite country to visit, and I mentioned that I have spent a lot of time in Italy, for example. Well, I do love Italy, but a lot of those trips have been, pay trips and work trips. I actually loved, traveling and going to Italy so much that I started creating a lot of online content about it. So I was able to travel in Italy and around the world for free, or actually getting paid to do traveling, just because I was able to hack the system, and I was able to, instead of having the corporate job, which I used to have, and instead of saving my money for a vacation, I owned an online magazine, and that allowed me to do a lot of the things like traveling, and get paid for that, instead of me paying just to go on vacation.
Yeah, crazy, crazy,
So
crazy stuff.
you can kind of
Another,
hack a
yeah,
lot of things.
yeah, definitely, you definitely can. I want to go into story time now, right? So I want to know what happened with you eating chips with one of the Spice Girls. How
Yes.
did that happen?
So kind of like what I said, I used to be an influencer in US, and I did a lot of really cool things, and like going to LA to Oscars and things like that. But I think one of the weirdest events was that I was asked to go to LA to a party sponsored by a tortilla chip company. And in that party, I was asked to eat chips with one of the males of Spice Girls, and Brooke Berg, who is like a TV star in the United States. So they flew me and maybe 10 other influencers to this party, and they had like one of those e-news, entertainment news red carpets, and it
Yeah.
didn't have, the whole party didn't have anybody else but the two, celebrities, 10 influencers. And I honestly think that the rest of the people were from the PR agency or even freaking paid actors. It was like a fake party
A
where
fake
the
party.
whole thing was like, oh, these celebrities, they are, and influencers, they are, celebrating the launch of a new tortilla chip. And
That's
it was
so
just the
funny.
weirdest, thing. And we were on
That is really
TV and
weird.
everything. And I'm just like, and I think that was it was a cool trip, a super cool trip.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
had a
sure.
lot of fun. But it was just one of those moments that, okay, this is probably not how influencer marketing should be done. That it still should be authentic and actual, and
Yeah.
not to these fake parties with
Yeah.
celebrities and, eating potato chips in a fancy sleek bars.
Yeah, but still a very funny story, I think. So I think it's a very cool fake party, anyways.
Yeah, it was but yeah, not many people maybe are invited to fly to LA to eat tortilla chips with Spice Girls.
Probably not. But that was really awesome. Thank you so much. That was such an interesting story. But we are sadly coming to the end of the podcast. But I do have three final questions for you. So first one is imagine it's 2035, so in 10 years' time. What does your life look like? What does Crush look like? Where are we?
I'll definitely be doing what I am doing right now, but just with the bigger impact and with more people. And
Mm-hmm.
I will be living in the countryside of Finland, and
Nice.
have more maybe time to also enjoy life and enjoy maybe sleeping
That's
more,
good.
and relaxing, and having a lot of people also around me to visit me in my little house in the countryside.
Lovely. And then second question, how can listeners follow along with your journey?
So I'm Katja Presnal on LinkedIn and crush.movement on Instagram. So you can find out more at crushmovement.com, and I would love you to join as a movement member, as a rebel leader who is making the change.
Mm-hmm. Love it. And then last question, how can listeners be useful to you? So what can they do to help you?
Probably my biggest quest is today that how do I get you to take more micro actions, that how can we do different things in our everyday lives to support fellow humans, or especially women and non-binary people. How can we maybe help immigrants to feel more home here in Finland? How can we help maybe somebody who is your coworker? But we all always talking about this, taking big action, but actually the change and the big action happens by taking a lot of tiny micro steps, and how we are changing the way that we treat other people in our daily lives, and how we treat our businesses on our daily lives. So I would say that check your biases and look a little more alive how it would be living in somebody else's shoes, and a lot of micro action.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I'm really looking forward to following along with your journey, and obviously Crush Movement's journey as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Do consider leaving us a review, as it helps the podcast tremendously.